The statements from Bob Young over the last few weeks have been pretty clear, and he said he will not come back to the table unless the Tiger Cats and the city have discussions about another site, not West Harbour. And I think, Lloyd, you touched on this a minute ago. You know, if they're not going to be a major tenant, he's reaffirmed that they're not going to play at West Harbour, period, end of sentence. I know there are some people on council, I know there are a lot of people in the community that said, he's bluffing. Well, he's not, as we've come to understand. If there's an indication in the meeting between the CFO for the Tiger Cats, Doug Rye, and Chris Murray, I would consider to be an indication that the Tiger Cats are willing to be flexible and have that discussion about an alternative site. Does that move that site to the number one list? I mean, you're running out of time here. I'm talking about Longwood.
Oh, Longwood. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure what site you're referring to. Look, I'm still a big fan of the West Harbour. I was out on the water yesterday, and it's just such a beautiful setting down there. But you know, at the end of the day, with this new information coming out of HostCo, I'm worried that we're staring down a lose-lose-lose situation, and so lose the Tiger Cats, possibly lose the stadium, and lose the Pan Am Games, and that's not an acceptable solution. So, the word compromise means everybody gives up a bit. We still got to do something for the West Harbour, and residential's tough with the appeal to the OMB by the railway, but we can all tick some boxes in Longwood. From Hamilton's or the city's perspective, it is a brownfield, although it's a somewhat of an adaptive reuse of a warehouse right now. It's down near downtown. We've already bought a large chunk of property at the corner of Longwood and Main for a future LRT station if that comes off. And it's close to public transit, and there's existing infrastructure already in place. So we get to check those 4 boxes at that location. Tiger Cats, 2 big issues for them were the highway accessibility, and of course you got the Main Street ramps and the Aberdeen ramps there. And they also get the visibility to the 403, which was very important to them, so they can capture the regional market, because people who live in Kitchener-Waterloo or St. Catharines or Brantford or London can see it from the highway. And now there's some issues.
Well, let me talk about those, because I know that a number of councillors have said, well, if they'll come back to the table, then we'll start looking. And they were kind of waiting for that assurance. The fact that their CFO met with your city manager indicates that there seems to be some flexibility. Bob Young has not communicated directly with anybody from City Council since the decision was made. I have obtained a copy of a letter that Bob Young is sending to Mayor Eisenberger and to you, all members of City Council. And I assume you're going to get this before the meeting tomorrow. It's not very long. I'm just going to read this to you now. And this is verbatim, what you guys will see on your letterhead. Dear Mayor Eisenberger, I understand City Council is conferring Tuesday, August 31st to consider, among other topics, a proposal to site the Pan Am Stadium at the Aberdeen-Longwood Road precinct. While we have not conducted comprehensive due diligence at the Longwood site, it does present the essential sports stadium requirements of highway exposure, access and egress for stadium visitors, public transit, a commercial industrial area allowing maximum number of dates and types of large audience events to be held there. Our goal for the new stadium will be to create the sustainable legacy facility as required by the Government of Canada, the Province of Ontario, to promote the city of Hamilton across Canada and around the world after the conclusion of the Pan Am Games. The stadium should bring in as many events as possible to Hamilton. These will include the Hamilton Tiger Cats CFL football team, a new franchise in the North American Soccer League, a high-performance soccer academy, as well as a number of other events organizations. Through this letter, I want to assure you and members of City Council, should it be the will of Council, the Hamilton Tiger Cats organization will engage constructively and urgently with the city to conclude a definitive Pan Am Stadium agreement in a timely manner. Signed, Bob Young. And that's a copy that's going out to Mayor Eisenberger and to you. I guess I'll start with you, Brad, and go around the table. Does this tell you these guys are ready to come and talk if you look at a site other than West Harbour? I mean, you've been asking for proof. This is the letter that you're going to receive later on, either today or tomorrow.
I didn't need a letter to understand that Bob Young would come to the table if we pulled West Harbour. He's made that very clear from the get-go. He was not going to talk about the West Harbour, and unfortunately we have not pulled it off the table. So the first thing Council has to do on Tuesday before we do anything else is pass a resolution that clearly removes the West Harbour from any further discussion with regards to the Pan Am Stadium and make it very unequivocal, and then begin looking at the alternative sites.
Lloyd?
Well, look, we could, if I've been hearing smoke signals or seeing smoke signals and hearing the tom-toms telling me that, but it's nice to hear now that he's put it in writing, which is critical because you had the facts.
So what's it do for your vote?
Well, I was going to propose Longwood anyway, but it certainly is very helpful if the Tiger Cats state that position in writing to us today. We could now turn this from a lose-lose-lose to a win-win-win.
But to that point, though, Brad is suggesting City Council first, and Bob Young has said first order of business is you have to take West Harbour off as a stadium site. Are you prepared to do that?
Well, I didn't hear him say that in the letter, but there's no question that we should move along with
You're mincing words here, Lloyd. He said if you had discussions about this, not the West Harbour. He said he will get into discussions with the Longwood site and the city of Hamilton. If you put two sites on this thing tomorrow, this is suicidal.
I agree. I will not put.
Well, you can't. That West Harbour plus Longwood is 2. That's 1 + 1.
That's not what I said. What I said is I support Longwood as a win-win-win solution for the location of the stadium.
And if there's a motion put forward tomorrow to take West Harbour off there, how are you going to vote?
Not sure. I want to think about that. It may be premature to take it off to see how the discussions go in Longwood. But if in fact they go well, I mean, there could be some showstoppers left. And, in this whole saga, things have changed by the day, as you know. And so if we can...
But if you have West Harbour on there, the Tiger Cats are not
I don't want to put West
table.
Harbour on there.
It's on there.
I want it... Bill, don't put words in my mouth now.
It's on there already. That's a council decision.
I will support...
Until it's removed, it's on there.
Okay.
I got to do a break. Think about that. Terry, I'll get your response too. I got to get a news...